and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses Show.
Don't touch that
This is the #1 podcast for real estate investing, and each episode covers what you need to know to find and flip deals right now.
Wow!
Break free of the chains that are holding you back and join us on today's episode. Hello and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses Show. My name is Michael Bretthauer, and I'm taking the place of Jason Lucchese today. And today we are bringing on an amazing guest, somebody who's going to bring some information to our listeners who are trying to get started in real estate, and they're trying to really get their business going for the first time, and they're looking for those strategies that are really helpful. So today's guest, Chris Prefontaine, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Mike. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, and Chris, if you don't mind, I don't want to take too much of your clout or your thunder away from you. If you want to introduce yourself, tell us, guests, a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do.
Yeah, we have a family company, Mike, in Newport, Rhode Island, where we buy and sell properties. My son-in-law, my daughter, great support team. We operate in Connecticut, Mass, and Rhode Island, and then we have students around the country who we do deals with. We call them associates, but we're basically doing the same thing we do here, all around the country with associates. So we handle like 5 or 10 deals a month right now. We do them all on terms. No money, no banks, all on terms. Nice.
And for our listeners out there who are listening, Chris just said no money, no banks. And these are some key words for real estate investors who are looking to get started. So, Chris, why don't we start talking a little bit about, doing with the owner financing and getting that deal started, as far as going after those leads, what are you currently doing to find those types of deals?
Yeah, all our deals might come from either virtual assistant calling on for sale by owners. So low overhead, that's going to cost you. You can do them yourself, but we use VAs. It costs us maybe $100 a week. And then we have what's called an expired dialing process that we've kind of built in-house, and we let our students use it. And that calls all the expireds. So those are our two main sources. We don't do heavy mailings and expensive, it's just too much, especially for a new person. Mm-hmm. So the two things I just mentioned are just phone calls. You can do them yourself, or again, use a VA.
Right. Definitely phone calls. Absolutely. So VA is something we talk about on the show all the time. And Chris just kind of reiterating here, like, hey, he's using the VAs to find these leads. And you said expired, that you have a software that you let your students use to find those leads?
It's actually nothing crazy. I'll tell you what it is. We called it a process just because we help students walk through it. But we use Slide Broadcast. There's other platforms out there. We hit 300 or 400 at a time. The ones that call back, I'll put through a bit of a process. And so we're only calling the cream of the crop. Nice. Good way to filter out your leads and, not waste time while you're making phone calls then. Yeah. Okay, cool. When reaching out to them, I know a lot of our listeners, one of their biggest questions is, okay, when I'm reaching out to a lead and I want to go the seller financing option, how do I determine whether or not that it is a good lead for seller financing? And then how do I segue that conversation into getting the seller to open to be that kind of option? Yeah, so we give you all the scripts, but let me give you that's a good one to answer, like seller financing. Before I answer it, Mike, let me say that when I say seller financing, because it means a lot of different things, right?
Sure, yeah, we could clarify what that is.
When I say seller financing, to us, that means it's a house that's free and clear. There's no debt on it. And the owner obviously doesn't need the cash. They would have already pulled that out, presumably. So right. The conversation really is, Mike, if I can get you to your market value, if we agree on that, are you willing to take that over time in payments with some agreed upon balloon payment date? The only time that deal is not good for someone is that they need or want the cash now, and they're willing to take a little less, because the punchline here is we pay principal only payments when we do this. So if you sell us your house for $500,000, I'm making monthly payments, but it's 100% principal, pounding down principal. So it's a great inflation hedge. It's a great recession hedge. And then at some date in the future, typically 4 years at least on the owner financing, we're going to have a balloon payment due. Okay, great. And then from there, then, so now that we have identified what that means to you, what a seller financing option is, how do you go about, finding them? Or I'm sorry, let me back up on this one. That's right. I had the question. I was writing down some of the things you were saying, and then I'm like, all right, hold on. I got to back to my question. We left off at reaching out to them, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So, yeah. All right. So now that we've, kind of identified what that is, reaching out to them, how do you start segueing that conversation with them? Yeah, so I'm gonna do a few things. I'm first gonna have a piece of paper, right? And the piece of paper is gonna be from a VA or my own in-house notes. It's going to tell me why they're selling, Mike. That's kind of important, right? That kind of your whole thing here is, can you solve problems? And I don't mean bad problems. I mean, just can you solve what they're trying to do? And in an owner financing case, what we mean by that is free and clear. There's no mortgage on the property when I say owner financing. So when I'm talking to that owner, unless they need or want the cash today, I'm probably going to be able to structure a deal. And I start that conversation with, Mike, if I was to get you your price, are you open to doing that on owner financing or lease purchase? Always. That's my opening question. And if they don't need the money now, usually they'll say, I'm open to it, or I never heard of that, or, they'll be open to it unless they need cash now. If they need cash now, they're going to take less money, presumably, and move on, right? And that's not a candidate for us.
Right. Okay.
So it's a pretty easy conversation.
It is a pretty easy conversation. I mean, very direct and upfront. And like you'd said, you're just going in there to solve a problem. You're not, really trying to sell them anything. It's just, hey, if you need the cash right now, if there's something I can help with, perhaps we can structure a deal.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Going from there, then, what do you do with the deal? Let's just say I'm the seller and you're talking to me on the phone and I'm like, yeah, you know what, Chris, that sounds really good. I would, I really could use the cash right now.
In an owner financing deal, there's no debt on it. It's a little bit easier actually than a lease purchase, because now I'm going to just, for my own sake, see what a regular homeowner would go and get a mortgage for. Say it's a $500,000 house. And let's say I do the calculation on my mortgage calculator right on my phone. And it says, geez, if I put down 10%, my mortgage payment might be, call it $2,000 just for the sake of round numbers. So I'm going to have an open conversation with them when we get to the payment amount, the monthly principal payment amount, that basically says, look, if a homeowner came in, they'd be paying this for a mortgage. I need to create a spread. That's one of the ways I make money. So I need to be paying you somewhere around $1,500 or $1,700. And we had that conversation about the monthly. That will be influenced by how far out that seller is going to go with us, though. I don't care about price, Mike. I really don't. I care about how far out they'll go and what the terms are. And that usually, to be honest with you, you mentioned wholesaling. That usually puts all the guard down with them, because they used to people coming in at 60 cents on the dollar, 70 cents on the dollar. And as soon as I say, well, no, I can get you full price. In fact, I might have to pay a premium, because if I go out far enough and I'm doing principal only, who cares? Right. It's pounding it down fast.
Right. No, absolutely. I know when we're one of the strategies that we've implemented with our own business is if we take a look at the numbers and it makes sense to do a seller financing option, we'll come back to one of our sellers that we're initially considering doing the wholesale on and say, you know what, I talked to my boss and, we've if you are, kind of willing to do the seller financing option, he's allowing me to come up on price to, offer more than historically he'd allow us to in the past. And then we, if that's something that they're open to because they need the money, or they're just not looking to sell for ridiculously cheap like on a wholesale deal, but they do need the money, that allows us to go down that option.
Yeah, and I love it. People say all the time, students, buyers, so they go, why would a seller do that? I go, we buy 5 or 10 a month. They do it if you give them the answer they're looking for, meaning solve that issue. Now, I will say for new people, if they're brand new listening to this, when you're saying to a seller, we're going to buy your home, no money down, principal only payments, you're asking them to make a transfer to you without giving them a down payment. So you do have to pay their closing costs, transfer tax, usually. I've had like 1 or 2 exceptions of that. So for a brand new person, if you don't have any cash that you want, I'm talking not even $1,000 to do that, then a lease purchase is the way to go. You accomplish the same thing, but the vehicle is a lease purchase versus owning it.
Right. So, and this is a great option for somebody that has zero money to even, start doing their marketing and direct mailing. Cause I know a lot of, especially when getting into this business, one of the things is like, wow, I need to spend, $1,500 a month on direct mailing. And then I need to, all these expensive tools. And that's not always the case. There are deals out there. Right. There are deals out there that don't cost that much, or that don't, as far as an investment to get those deals.
Yeah, I remember literally when I started doing the terms business, I've been at this for a lot of years, but when I started doing the terms business in 2013, I literally was in like a closet for an office and I just dialed FSBOs for it went on for like part-time for like a few weeks. They can pick up the phone as long as they have the scripts, and we'll give them the scripts.
Right. Let me ask you this, because I know so many people get frustrated. How many phone calls did you have to make in those very early days before you started getting people to like get traction on you and build up your pipeline?
Yeah, I can tell you what the numbers are. We track it obnoxiously, and I try to have the students do this, because if you track your numbers, you can predict next year, right? If you have a year of tracking, you go, how many deals do I need? Great. How many calls I got to do? Great. So the averages are 17 property information sheets. So I talk to a seller. 17 of those will get me in the door for an appointment. 25 get me a contract, and 35 get me to a check. So if you want to do the end result, every 35 a piece of paper, I got a nice payday. And what's cool about our paydays is this, and it's in the book, but every deal has 3 paydays. Every deal has 3 paydays, and they run for us in the New England area around 75 grand per deal, and around the country 45 grand to 110 grand. It's a big gap, but those are very lucrative deals. So they're getting paid. If you're brand new, you get paid right away with some cash down up front from the buyer. You get paid every single month with a little spread between what you pay out and what you take in. Then you get paid on the back end. Well, that's pretty cool. It's 3 paydays per house.
Right. Not
Instead
a bad way to
do it again.
Right. Not a bad way to build up your passive income on a monthly basis. And you're in an area that's not, it's got higher value properties. It's not kind of one of those, like, we're in the Midwest. So, when we're structuring our deals and everything, there's a lot more margin wiggle room, I would think, in our rooms. And we're at like a 65%, 75% ARV. Whereas where you're at, you're closer to, and it's probably really hard to get wholesale deals in your area because you're closer to about a 75%, 80% ARV on, when you're structuring your deal. Am I right?
Yeah. Deals in general around my area, this will help the new people thinking, I wonder if there's deals around me. We live on an island called the Quidnick Island. It's 3 towns. It's a very little population. So we've done just a handful of deals on these 3 towns. That's why we have to go on the outskirts. And I can't tell you, we don't go looking for wholesale or lowballing. I shouldn't say lowballing, 65%.
Thanks.
No, wrong word. So we don't look for them. So I honestly don't know, but yeah, I would think it'd be harder. Of course, we're going on the script. Think of this, pick up the phone and say, hey, Mike, we can get you full market value. Different conversation. Right
off the bat. Absolutely. Yeah. So this is even great for a newbie who's has that fear of having that conversation. And because I've, with our partnerships and a lot of our coaching, they're like, I just don't see why they would take this amount of money for their property. That's like the number one. I don't even want to call the person and ask them. So right off the bat, you're like, I can get you fair market value or full market value for your property. Yeah. They're like, oh, well, that could be an easy conversation to have.
And you know what will help people not understand, but get confidence is we have, I don't know, hundreds of hours, but we have 40 or 50 at a time where they can listen to live seller calls, us and students live, and hear the conversation going back and forth. You listen to 50 of those, you kind of get it.
Right.
You get an idea.
Right. No, absolutely. And, I know we're real early on this, but where could people find that information so they can listen to your calls where you're having with seller financing?
Yeah, they can go to smartrealestatecoach.com. And if they don't mind dealing with listening to me for another hour, they get a free webinar there for it's like 55 minutes or so. But there's a lot of content in that, and that'll give them, Mike, at the end, they'll say, all right, this is something I want to pursue further or not. But at least it's a free due diligence. They can pop and weave through it.
Right. So smartrealestatecoach.com. We're going to reference that later on in the show, but I know people might be listening to this and thinking like, man, I want to listen to some of these, so they might want to jump in there and go to those. But no, that's good. Listening to the back and forth. And I know you'd mentioned lease purchases as well. I don't know if you want to cover that a little bit.
Sure, those are easy too. They're even easier to talk about because you're not asking someone to transfer the deed, right? Mm-hmm. So let's go. There's a lot of scenarios with lease purchase, but let's go with the average house that, let's say, it's 300 grand. They owe 250. They're not behind because there's all kinds of directions we can go. They're not behind. Right. They got 50 grand equity if they got full price for the house. But let's say it was an expired. They didn't get full price. They also would have had to pay a realtor, so they probably would have been close to break even.
Right.
So we come in and go, hey, Mike, based on your number, I haven't seen the house yet, but based on your number, if your home's worth 300 and you owe 250, we're going to protect that 50 grand for you. How so? If you don't need the 50 grand out or whatever you were going to get out, it's a lot less than the open market. We're going to go ahead and pay your mortgage payment every single month. And then on or before the date we agree, usually 3-4 years, we're going to pay off that mortgage. Now, remember, the mortgage is going to be less, right? So we benefit from that.
Right.
And we're going to pay off the mortgage and we're going to give you your $50,000 that you were trying to protect and it didn't happen for you on the open market. That's not a tough conversation to have with a seller. That's the script. And so we take over. They say, what do you mean? What if something happens to us? That's my problem. It's not yours. We take all your maintenance, repairs, etc. They love it if they don't need the money right away.
Right. No, that sounds great too. And that's just, you coming in and saying like, hey, we're going to protect this asset that you have as opposed to, hey, I want to buy your house. Completely different conversation.
It is. We can protect your equity, which kind of throws in for a loop. But if you use that example I just gave, 250 and 50, they get it. They can understand that.
Right. No, that's not hard numbers to figure out at all. So okay,
those
great.
Are good, Mike, for out of state. You get a lot of people going out of state who didn't sell. It's screwing up their plans. They can't leave, and that protects it, and they know it's in good hands. That's a really good example of who would want to do that.
Right. And speaking from an out-of-state standpoint, this is something that could absolutely be done from a virtual standpoint. Building up your business, you could just set up your boots on the ground just like you would in like a virtual wholesaling business. I know a lot of newbies are just trying to get started, and that's kind of the process they've learned is to, hey, we got to have a real estate agent, we got to have a title company. Like, you still kind of need all the same elements, but the conversations with the sellers is a little bit easier and a little bit easier to get through, and don't require any funds up front.
Yeah, we do some deals virtual like that, and some of our students do. But I'll tell you, with a lease purchase, you don't need the attorney on their end, especially till the very end anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that difficult at the beginning to engage. We've engaged a home builder. We've engaged a home inspector who, when we put the ads out, they said, yeah, we can do that. Mm-hmm. And they're our boots on the ground. But think about it, it's even better sometimes than us going, because they do a full report, and they get it back to us. Then we negotiate on the phone, and the deal's done. Now, we do most of our deals in person, but that we've started doing just to leverage ourselves.
Okay. Nice. Now, from let's just say if we were able to dial this back to when you were just getting started with this strategy, and you were able to kind of give yourself a little bit of advice from a perspective like, okay, how can I really get started with my first deal, doing like a lease purchase or doing a seller financing option? What advice would you give yourself to get that done quicker or more efficiently for that first deal?
I tell everybody this answer. It's a good question, because this answer could go to any business, not just real estate. And the answer is, because there's so much free information out there, our YouTube channel has, mounds and mounds of deals you can review for free. Because it's accessible by everybody, go look at what niche you think you want. If it's wholesaling, if it's rehabbing, if it's what we do, I'm not so naive to think everybody loves our strategy. So once you find that strategy, find someone that not only did the deals, because unfortunately, Mike, there's people that did deals 20 years ago and they're teaching right now. That's right. A scary thought financially. You're going to get burnt because they don't know what's going on. So find someone that is doing it still, and then latch on to them for 3 years and don't look left, right, or backwards. You'll have a great experience. I think what happens is people mismanage their expectations, and they want a deal tomorrow, so they just keep giving up and chasing the next shiny object. Find a niche and run with it for 3 years. You'll have a phenomenal experience. Right.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because, I've heard, a lot of people talk trash about educations. And in my opinion, as an educator and somebody who's doing the business, I think most information, most education, most stuff that people put out there works. You pointed out like, hey, I'm not naive enough to think that my strategy is for everybody, because it might not be. It might not be for the person that's trying to start out. But I think most information works, and I'm glad you brought that up. This is why we do podcasts like this. This is why you're on the show and putting the information out there. So if somebody can hear that, like, hey, I want to start a business off, and this lease option, or this lease purchase or seller financing option sounds phenomenal. Let me find out what this Chris guy is talking about. Or, we'd rather just do the wholesale. Great. Well, I'm going to talk more about what Jason's talking about.
Exactly.
It's really just, getting out there and doing it. You said you've got an extensible YouTube channel, and, I'm sure you have all sorts of resources where you're putting information out for people to not only reach out to you, but to learn about your business and what you're doing. Besides YouTube, I'm sure you have a Facebook account, all the other social media accounts and everything. And if I went online right now and typed in Chris Prefontaine, am I saying that right? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't like my name, Brett Howard, and I get mispronounced all the time. Yeah. If I just type your name in there, or if I type in lease option or lease purchase, I might come across your name and find a wealth of information.
Real estate coach. There's a ton of good stuff out there. We're cognizant of the fact that a lot of people put out free stuff, so you gotta make sure you keep up with that and let the people pick. I'd rather have someone go through a grueling due diligence and find out what niche they want. Then they're going to stick versus just kind of popping around.
Right. Absolutely. You got, unless you really know, you shouldn't have to, you don't have to these days buy into anything to find out whether or not you're going to like it. And then when you find the one you like, then buy into it, or invest into it, I should say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one of the questions that we always like to ask our guests, and this is something you and I kind of talked offline, is, what book, you would recommend to our listeners. And Chris, you are doing something really cool on today's show. You are actually giving away a free book, and I don't want to talk too much about it. I want to let you go ahead and tell them about it, but you're giving away a free book. They don't even have to pay for the shipping. Am I right?
Yeah, I'll tell you why. I was in the airport about 6 months ago, and I won't say the person's name because everybody knows it. But the book came out, so I'm on my phone, I'm low tech, and I hit it, and it's a free book, great. And then it gets to the screen where I got to put a credit card, and I'm running through an airport. I said, that's not free. I got to put a card in for shipping. So our Amazon bestseller is like $25 or something. You don't have to even go to Amazon. Just go to freesrecbook.com and we'll pay for shipping. You will not be asked to put in a credit card. I just need your address so I can ship it to you.
Awesome. So you heard that. What was it? It was, I wrote it
free
down here.
SREC. It stands for Smart Real Estate Coach in case they don't catch it, but freesrecbook.com.
freesrecbook.com. We will put that in the show notes. I just wrote it down right here. So we will put that in the show notes. Is there any special code, or they can just go ahead and click on that and they can go ahead and get that book with their address?
Your show, they heard it on the show, and Lauren in our support department will get it right out. And as I said earlier, the webinar is free too. So dive in, see if it's something you want to dive into. Hey,
listen there, folks. I mean, you get a free book. You get a free webinar, basically a ton of more of free information that, Chris dropped some great nuggets on not only how you could start with a really easy strategy, as far as, lease purchases or seller financing. He had talked a little bit about, starting out with the phone calls. And these are things that, if you haven't heard them on our show, if you hadn't heard them on Chris's channel, you haven't heard them on another resource, these are three common things, making the calls, putting in the effort and things like that. But Chris dropped two really cool strategies that any investor, starting off in the very beginning with zero money can get started with. Chris is giving away a free book, The Real Estate on Your Terms, which you can find at freesrecbook.com. And we will put that in the show notes. Chris, is there anything on it, that you would suggest to our listeners out there? I mean, I'll paint you the picture real quick of who they are. They people that want to get started in real estate investing business. They're following people like you in our show that see, that people that are doing it and making it successful, and they have that hunger to do it. They see that there's these great strategies that they can go do, like wholesaling or, seller financing. What advice would you give to them to just get that first deal going? Because like you said, not every strategy is for everybody. There's lots of information. What advice would you give to them to just, hey, let's start 2019 off with just a huge bang?
Well, I know we talked about studying. We both said that's good. But don't study yourself to death with, analysis by paralysis. So once you pick that niche, do what I said. So I don't have to be redundant here, but do what I said and put the blinders on. Don't listen to all the noise on the internet and all the crap. Just find a mentor and stick with him or her for 3 years. Commit to yourself and your family for 3 years. I know it sounds easy, but 3 years goes by like that. And it is very, very important to get yourself up in the right direction and not be distracted.
Right. Is there any links that you had or for people to reach out to you on Facebook or anything like that if they want to get in contact?
If they go to the smartrealestatecoach.com, there's a contact button there. It'll come right over.
Okay. All right. Yep. Well, hey, you got that, folks. Hey, if you go to smartrealestateBook.com and go to click contact, if you want to reach out to Chris, for everybody else, make sure you go to this link, get this free book. I mean, Chris is doing an amazing thing, giving you this book away for free. He's going to cover your shipping costs. So that's really cool. So make sure you take advantage of that. Read the information in this book. Decide where it is you want to be with your business, how you want to get things forward. Chris, I really want to thank you for coming on our show. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk to our listeners, drop your nuggets, and then even more so to give away this book. I think that's an amazing gift to give away. So, hats off to you, and really appreciate you being on our show.
I appreciate it. You guys are great. Thank you.
Absolutely. And everyone else, get out there, make your calls. Chris iterated that today. Get your 15 offers out, go flip a deal, and we will see you on the next episode of the No Flipping Excuses Show. Take care and bye.